Have you ever wondered why the smallest word in your vocabulary, no, feels like the hardest to say? It's a single syllable, soft and brief, yet it trembles on the tongue like an act of rebellion. We hesitate, we overthink, we twist ourselves into compliance, not because the world demands it, but because deep within, something ancient whispers that refusal means danger, that saying no will cost us love, belonging, acceptance. But the truth is, every time a person betrays their own boundaries to please another, a quiet erosion begins. The soul bends, the spine weakens, and soon the reflection in the mirror no longer carries the same fire in the eyes. In Stoic philosophy, no is not defiance, it is discernment. It is the invisible line between chaos and peace, between what belongs to you and what never did. Marcus Aurelius once reflected that a man's true strength lies in knowing what he will not allow. To say no is to choose clarity over confusion, self-respect over approval. It is not a rejection of others. It is the acceptance of oneself. But in the modern world, the art of refusal has been shamed into extinction. People are taught to say yes to every request, to every invitation, to every demand masked as kindness. The culture celebrates overextension, mistaking exhaustion for virtue. We glorify the busy, the always available, the endlessly accommodating, as though boundaries were a flaw and depletion a badge of honor. Yet beneath that performance lies quiet resentment, a slow-burning fatigue that corrodes authenticity from within. To understand the hidden power of saying no, one must look beneath behavior into the psyche's architecture, where the archetypes live. There is the pleaser, the one who bends to maintain harmony. There is the martyr, who sacrifices peace for validation. And there is the child, still haunted by the memory of punishment for defiance. Each carries the shadow of fear, fear of rejection, fear of guilt, fear of being unloved. But when you begin to awaken, you see that every yes made from fear is a slow form of self-betrayal. The Stoics knew this well. They taught that freedom begins not with more choices, but with fewer illusions. The power of no is the power to refuse illusion, to say, this is not aligned with who I am. When a person cannot say no, they become divided. Their outer self moves through the motions of agreement, while their inner self screams in silence. Jung called this the split between persona and shadow. The persona, polite, agreeable, social, smiles, while the shadow accumulates resentment, anger, and fatigue. Over time, the shadow grows louder, seeking expression through burnout, bitterness, or quiet withdrawal. To reclaim wholeness, the two must meet, and they meet the moment you whisper, perhaps trembling, perhaps afraid, no more. This word, small yet seismic, reshapes the internal landscape. It calls the scattered pieces of the soul back into alignment. For the first time, the body exhales. The nervous system calms. A strange strength rises from the chest, not arrogance, but serenity. You realize that peace is not something others grant you. It is something you guard. The Stoic does not say no out of anger, but out of order, out of a deep understanding that time is finite, energy sacred, and presence precious. He learns to measure his yes carefully, like a craftsman counting gold. And when he declines, he does so without guilt. For guilt belongs to the untrained mind, not the disciplined one. Consider the irony of human nature. People will say yes to what drains them, but no to what frees them. They'll say yes to distraction, noise, and false urgency, but no to solitude, rest, and silence. Why? Because stillness confronts them with truth. In silence, the illusions of obligation fade, and what remains is self-honesty, the very thing they've avoided by saying yes too often. So the journey begins not with a roar, but with a whisper that says, "I am enough, even when I refuse." This is where inner strength takes root, not in grand gestures, but in quiet refusals. The Stoic understood that to govern oneself is the greatest empire, and every empire begins with walls, not to imprison, but to protect what is sacred within. And perhaps when you finally learn to say no, not from pride, not from fear, but from peace, the world no longer feels like a battlefield demanding your constant surrender. It becomes a garden you can tend with clarity, knowing what deserves to grow and what must be pruned. There comes a moment when the word no stops being a sound and becomes a mirror. It reflects not what others demand of you, but what you have become in your constant surrender. You start to notice how much of your life has been built around the comfort of others, their approval, their needs, their moods. You begin to realize that every time you said yes to avoid discomfort, you carved another wound into your own integrity. In psychology, this is called fawning, the fourth trauma response, hidden behind the better-known ones of fight, flight, and freeze. The fawn learns early that peace is earned by pleasing. So they smile when they want to scream. They agree when every cell in their body says no. The Stoics, long before psychology had words for it, called this the enslavement of the soul, the surrender of inner sovereignty to outer forces. Epictetus taught that no man is free who is not master of himself, and mastery begins when you stop apologizing for protecting your peace. To say no is to reclaim authorship of your own story. It's not a rejection, it's an edit. You are no longer allowing side characters to write your lines. You are choosing which scenes you will inhabit, which roles you will play, and which energies you will no longer audition for. It is not cruelty, it is precision. But this clarity comes at a cost. The moment you begin to assert boundaries, the world will test you. People who benefited from your compliance will mistake your self-respect for arrogance. They will guilt, shame, or question you. You've changed, they will say, not realizing that what changed was your willingness to be used. In that moment, your no becomes a mirror for their discomfort, reflecting their dependency on your silence. This is where Stoicism and shadow work intertwine. Jung wrote that the shadow is everything we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves. When you say no, you confront the parts of you that fear being disliked, the parts that were conditioned to equate self-worth with service. The Stoic would say that every attachment must be tested by reason. So when you refuse, ask yourself, am I rejecting from ego, or am I protecting from truth? If it is truth, then let the world misunderstand. Peace is not found in explanations. The greatest strength lies in stillness, the kind that no longer needs to prove itself. The disciplined mind does not over-explain its refusal. It stands like a mountain, unshaken by the winds of opinion. There is a beauty in that silence, a sacred defiance in restraint. The ancients saw this as sophrosin, the virtue of measured composure, of knowing the limits that preserve harmony. When you learn to say no, you start noticing the difference between connection and consumption. You stop mistaking attention for affection. You stop confusing urgency for importance. Every refusal becomes a quiet ceremony of self-respect. And with each one, your life begins to rearrange itself. The noise lessens, the false obligations fall away, the right people remain, those who understand that your boundaries are not walls, but gates that open to those who knock with respect. There is a peculiar calm in this way of living. You begin to walk slower, speak less, and listen more, not out of passivity, but mastery. The Stoic knows that not every battle deserves the blade, not every invitation deserves the presence. Some peace is won by withdrawal, by the simple art of non-participation. And yet, for many, the first no feels like death, because in a way, it is. The death of the old self, who lived through pleasing, the one who survived by shrinking. But from that death, something sacred is born, a quiet confidence that does not need permission to exist. This rebirth is subtle, often unseen by the world, yet it is the foundation of every truly free human being. In time, no becomes more than a word. It becomes a rhythm, a pulse that keeps your inner world intact. You start choosing your conversations, your environments, your habits, with discernment. You learn that energy is a currency, and not everyone deserves your investment. The Stoics called this oikeiosis, the art of living in alignment with nature, where one's inner order mirrors the harmony of the cosmos. The man or woman who can say no without guilt has achieved a rare form of freedom, for they no longer live as a reaction to the world, but as a creator within it. Their silence is not emptiness, it is structure. Their distance is not coldness, it is clarity. And when you reach this stage, no is no longer about others. It is about preserving the quiet temple of your mind. It is the space between stimulus and response, the sacred pause where wisdom lives. Eventually, every human being must stand at the threshold of their own boundaries and choose whether to cross them or guard them. This is the sacred turning point between a life of reaction and a life of intention. Saying no is not merely about protection. It is the first act of creation. It creates the space where something true can finally exist. Without that space, every dream suffocates under the weight of false obligations. In the language of psychology, this moment is called individuation, the birth of the authentic self. Jung described it as the process through which one becomes whole, integrating the shadow, the persona, and the inner child into harmony. The Stoics might have called it living according to nature, not the nature of impulse, but of reason, virtue, and alignment. Both paths lead to the same summit, the realization that peace is not found in saying yes to everything, but in saying yes only to what truly matters. When you begin to say no, something paradoxical happens. You start to feel lighter, yet stronger. Each refusal becomes an anchor in the storm, each boundary a quiet affirmation that your life has direction. You stop scattering your time like coins in a crowd. You start spending your presence with purpose. In that moment, you begin to understand why the Stoics valued simplicity, because clarity is born from the pruning of excess. But beware, the mind resists this transformation. It whispers, what if they leave? What if they're disappointed? What if I end up alone? These questions are not the voice of wisdom. They are the echoes of old wounds. They belong to the part of you that once believed survival depended on approval. The Stoics would remind you that nothing external can truly harm the soul unless the soul consents to it. You are not being cruel by protecting your energy. You are being responsible. The man or woman who cannot say no becomes a prisoner of false virtue. They give endlessly, yet resent quietly. They appear kind, yet feel hollow. Their generosity turns into obligation, and their love becomes performance. But when no enters their vocabulary, love transforms. It becomes clean, free of guilt, free of barter. It becomes the kind of love that does not lose itself in giving. In a world obsessed with more followers, more validation, more connection, no becomes an act of rebellion. It is the quiet protest against the tyranny of constant availability. It is the declaration that your time, your attention, and your inner world are not public property. To say no is to remember that the soul has doors and not everyone should be allowed to enter. Imagine two kinds of people. One moves through life saying yes to every demand, every favor, every expectation. Their calendar is full, but their spirit is starving. The other speaks with intention. Their refusals are as deliberate as their agreements. Their life is quieter, but inside that quiet is depth, space to think, to feel, to live deliberately. The first is busy being liked. The second is busy being free. The transformation from one to the other is not easy. It demands discipline, the kind that the Stoics revered. It requires the courage to face temporary discomfort for the sake of lasting peace. It requires the strength to watch people walk away and not chase after them. For what is meant for you will never demand your self-betrayal as proof of loyalty. Every no you utter with integrity rewires your nervous system. It teaches your body that safety can coexist with boundaries. It teaches your heart that rejection is not the end, but redirection. It teaches your spirit that solitude is not punishment, it is power. This is the essence of Stoic detachment. To stand rooted in your values, untouched by the emotional storms of others. Not cold, but calm. Not distant, but discerning. To say no from this place is not hardness, it is holiness. It is the quiet alignment between word, action, and soul. And when you master it, something profound happens. The noise of life dims, the chaos loses its grip. You begin to hear the soft hum of your own truth beneath it all. A sound that was always there, just buried under the constant chorus of yes. Every soul that learns to say no eventually discovers a deeper silence beneath it, a silence that doesn't ache anymore. It's the silence of sovereignty. Once, that silence felt empty, like the aftermath of loss. Now, it feels full, like still water reflecting the sky. This is the paradox of boundaries. What begins as separation becomes connection of the highest kind. Because only when you stop saying yes to everything can you say yes to what truly deserves your energy. Only when you stop performing for approval can love finally find the real you, the one who isn't diluted by obligation. The Stoics understood this principle as the art of alignment. Marcus Aurelius wrote that the soul is dyed by the color of its thoughts. If your thoughts are stained by fear, fear of rejection, fear of judgment, fear of loneliness, your yes will always be a disguise. But when your mind becomes disciplined, dyed in the color of clarity, no becomes an act of compassion. Compassion for your time, compassion for your truth, compassion for the quiet voice that has waited years to be heard. And that voice grows stronger with every refusal, rooted in peace. It begins to guide you like a compass, pointing toward simplicity. You no longer rush to please, to prove, to justify. You no longer explain your boundaries like a lawyer defending a case. You let your silence carry the verdict. You understand that explanation is often a plea, and peace never pleads. There is a power that emerges only when one no longer fears loss. When you say no, and something or someone leaves, you learn what was real and what was merely convenient. The Stoic would not mourn the departure. They would study it. They would ask, Did I lose something essential, or did I lose what was never mine? In that examination, pain turns into insight. What once felt like rejection now feels like refinement. But society will not celebrate this form of strength. It prefers the compliant, the endlessly available, the perpetually agreeable. You will be misunderstood, even resented. Yet the wise do not trade truth for popularity. They understand that peace is not a public achievement, it's a private discipline. You begin to see that every no rearranges your reality. The noise fades, the calendar breathes, the mind quiets. You start to notice the softness of dawn, the slow rhythm of your own thoughts. You feel time expanding because it is no longer hijacked by other people's urgency. You taste solitude and realize it is not loneliness, but liberation. And within that solitude, something extraordinary happens. Creativity returns. The energy that once fueled endless obligation now becomes the fire of creation, reflection, and purpose. You write again. You dream again. You remember who you were before the world taught you to be everything for everyone. In psychological terms, this is integration, the healing of fragmentation. The parts of you that once hid in exhaustion now come forward, grateful for the space you've made. The adult self embraces the wounded child, saying, "You no longer have to earn love by saying yes." The nervous system exhales, the body softens. You are no longer at war with your own boundaries. This is what it means to live stoically in a modern world, not detached from life, but undistracted by it. To walk through chaos and remain still within. To understand that mastery is not control over others, but control over impulse. That the word no is not a weapon, but a doorway, one that opens to a simpler, truer life. In the end, every no you speak becomes a prayer of gratitude for the self you've reclaimed. You realize that love given freely has more power than love performed under pressure. That peace chosen deliberately has more meaning than happiness pursued blindly. And as you stand there, calmer, quieter, whole, you understand what the ancients always meant when they spoke of virtue. It was never about perfection. It was about order, about harmony between word and being. So when the next demand comes knocking, and it will, you will feel that old reflex to comply rising again. But now, a gentler force will meet it. The discipline of a Stoic, the awareness of a sage, the strength of someone who knows that peace is not found in approval, but in alignment. And perhaps then, you will smile slightly, breathe deeply, and answer with the most sacred word of all: no.